welcome back. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines. A photo of US President Donald Trump that had been removed from the cache of Jeffrey Epstein files released by the Department of Justice was restored on Sunday after officials determined none of the Epstein's victims were in the image. Meanwhile, Trump administration denies cover-up over redacted Epstein files. A Ukrainian drone attack damaged 2 vessels, 2 piers and sparked a fire in a village on the Black Sea coast in Russia's Krasnodar region, as per regional authorities. Australian state premier pushes for stricter gun laws after Bondi mass shooting. State parliament reconvenes to push through stricter laws. Japan is set to take the final step to restart the world's largest nuclear power plant when the region of Niigata votes on the resumption of operations in a watershed moment for the country's pivot back to nuclear energy nearly 15 years after the Fukushima disaster. South Korea's parliament passed a bill on Monday to launch an independent probe into the Jeju airplane crash in December 2024 that killed 179 people in the deadliest air disaster on the country's soil. Southeast Asian foreign ministers meet in Malaysia today seeking to end border clashes between Thailand and Cambodia that have killed at least 40 people and displaced more than 500,000 this month. A group of private equity firms led by Permira and Warburg Pincus has clinched a deal to acquire investment and accounting software maker Clearwater Analytics holdings for about $8.4 billion, including debt. Researchers have identified elusive DNA switches in brain support cells that influence genes tied to Alzheimer's disease. Scientists at the University of SW Sydney pinpointed important regulatory DNA sequences that influence how astrocytes function. Alright viewers, let's start with some news coming in from Australia. The New South Wales State Parliament in the country has been recalled to debate proposed laws aimed at tightening gun control, banning the display of terror symbols and restricting protests. The move follows a mass shooting at the Bondi Beach that reignited concerns about public safety. Premier Chris Minns told reporters that while he expects opposition to the legislation, the measures are necessary to protect the community. Authorities have noted gaps in existing laws despite Australia having some of the world's strictest firearm regulations stemming from a 1996 mass shooting. Currently in New South Wales, there is no limit on firearm ownership if the reason is approved by the police, with more than 70 residents owning over 100 guns each, according to the state's firearm registry. The proposed laws aim to close these gaps and address safety concerns. Let's listen in to a statement that's coming from the New South Wales Premier Chris Minns and Minister for Counter-Terrorism Yasmin Keatley.
New laws, tough new laws to protect the community, to crack down on hate and strengthen public safety. The legislation bans the public displays of terrorist symbols, outlaws violence, incitement to violence in New South Wales, and gives police stronger powers during public assemblies. It also delivers the toughest firearm reforms in the country. It does restrict access to high-risk weapons, strengthening licence, storage and oversight regimes. You've seen what the consequences of globalising the Intifada are. It's the death of 15 innocent people on the beaches of Bondi Beach simply for practising their religion in a peaceful way. I acknowledge that we don't have the same free speech rules that they have in the United States, and I don't make any apologies for that. We have got a responsibility to knit together our community that comes from different races and religions and places from all over the world. But we can do it in a peaceful way because I'm convinced that most Australians want to live together in peace and harmony and have no interest in poking each other, either in malicious, violent ways or even in incitement to violence and hatred and racism in our community.
From our street makes our street safer. We have more than 1.1 million guns in our state. And reducing the number of those, particularly for rec shooters, I think is reasonable. We know that not everybody, or we know that many, are good law-abiding gun licence holders. We know that. But we also have to acknowledge the harm that can be caused by guns. And for that reason, we have introduced these legislations.
All right, I'm now joined in by retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar, who's an international relations and defense expert, and he joins us from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us here in this discussion. What do you think about the measures that are being held in Australia? Better late than never?
Thank you, Kriti. I mean, it's a very, very important decision which the Australian government is taking now, because considering that you have such a large migrant population, 8.6 million in Australia, constituting almost 31.5% of the population, there is a need to carry out these review of the gun license regime. You see, right now they are following a policy in which they have categorized this entire gun licensing into four categories: category A, B, C, and D. And category D relates to the automatic weapons, in which I don't think a license is being given to the general public. So I think the first and foremost important aspect what they are deciding now is that there'll be a limit to the number of firearms a person can hold. As you actually so mentioned that people have a single person has got 100 weapons. I mean, it is very astonishing to learn that there is no upper limit on the number of firearms a person can hold. And even this Akram was having six
Six, yeah,
firearms.
yeah.
So that is the question. So I think right direction actually they're going in. The second aspect they are also looking into is that when they are going to issue the firearm, they are also going to see his social media handles to see what kind of mindset this individual has. Because if you are going to issue a firearm to a person who has got this extremist mindset,
Yeah.
so I think that will become a question mark. So that is one important aspect of the decision which is also taking place. And the third is that uh, it is not only important on the you firearms licensing also. You also have to look into the influx of the drugs and other related aspects into the civil population, especially the immigrant population, because if you go back into history, you will see that many of these people who indulge in violence are drug addicts. So they are under the influence of drugs. I think that would be the next step Australia would be cracking down. And last aspect is there has to be strong penalties invoked into this law now for illegal possession of firearms. So if there is a deterrence available into the laws, that will hold good to ensure that not anybody or everybody can actually hold a firearm.
But the opposition that's coming from the lobby groups and the gun dealers is that, you know, it will unfairly penalize law-abiding gun owners and, you know, also hamper pest control. How can Australia address these concerns?
You see, whenever any change is actually taking place or any law is being changed, there is bound to be an opposition to the law. So I think what the government must clarify or must communicate to the people in large is that why this change of law has been necessitated and why a common citizen will not be affected if he's a bona fide person who is requiring a weapon for pest control. How many weapons you need for pest control, you tell me? So this will have to be communicated properly through social media campaigns, because it's actually important for the people to accept this law and not make it an opposition kind of rhetoric to get back at the government. So I think here the opposition also needs to understand that this law is being made for the betterment of the nation, for a betterment of the safety of the country, and they would also need to be taken into confidence by the government, and the government needs to communicate to them also that why this law is being review of this law is being taken about. So I think that kind of an exercise is also required.
All right. But do you think while there is increased focus on gun laws, as it also should be, the issue of extremism, anti-Semitism, increasing radicalization is somehow not being given as much importance as it also needed after the Bondi incident?
I guess you're actually very right. See, what is happening in the Middle East, what is happening with the Muslim population in other parts of the country is bound to affect the population, especially the immigrant population in Australia also. So we saw this backlash against the Jews taking place. That was a direct result of what is happening in Gaza today. So these kind of influences are bound to be there on the people here. So now what kind of measures you need to take as a government? Because you have now made a person a citizen of the country. So I think the first important is that you will have to tighten your immigration laws. Because see, gun laws is one part. Now the second part is that you like to control what type of people are coming into your country. Because subsequently the education system takes on in trying to tell the people that you are now in a different society, you are a part of the Australian culture, and you have to learn to adapt to the Australian way of thinking, because you have taken up a citizenship of this country. So I think the next step the government must take is to tighten the immigration laws, because you see almost 10% of the population of Australia today is on short-term visas. These people are actually coming in because it gives you revenue, it gives you money. So revenue should not be the overriding factor when you decide your immigration laws. You'll have to see that what kind of people are coming in. A filtering process, which I don't think is there too much deep filtration process is not there in Australia, and that is why a large number of people tend to go to Australia and work there and study there. So I think that aspect will also need due attention.
Sure, we'll come back to the question of immigration laws, but from the US perspective. Do stay on with me, Dr. Kochar. As we move on, viewers, the US President Donald Trump is preparing a more aggressive immigration crackdown in 2026, backed by billions of dollars in new funding, even as political backlash builds ahead of next year's midterm elections. Immigration and Border Patrol agencies are set to receive around $170 billion in additional funding through September 2029, allowing the administration to hire thousands more agents, expand detention centers, and step up workplace and neighborhood enforcement. Federal agents have already surged into major cities, sparking clashes with residents and growing concern over aggressive tactics. Critics say the crackdown is shifting from an immigration debate to a question of civil rights and due process. The expanded deportation plans come despite growing signs of political backlash ahead of next year's midterms. Miami, which is one of the most affected cities by Trump's crackdown, elected its first Democratic mayor in nearly 3 decades last week. Other local elections and polling have also suggested rising concern about among voters who are wary of aggressive immigration tactics. Trump's overall approval rating on immigration policy fell from 50% in March before he launched crackdown. in several major US cities to 41% in mid-December for what had been his strongest issue. And I now request Dr. Kochhar to join us back in the discussion here. Dr. Kochhar, do help us and our viewers understand how the question of immigration crackdown shifts nuances when we speak about Australia and then when we speak about the West and US particularly.
Kriti, you see, what has happened is that why has West opened its doors to the immigration is because most of their own people don't want to do a particular kind of a job, which possibly, if you a grassroots level kind of a job, uh, the kind of workforce which is required, the labor force which is required, and that is why we find in most of these countries, including Canada and Great Britain, a large number of immigrants are there on non-tech jobs.
Yes.
On basically drivers, plumbers,
Yeah.
carpenters, it's workmanship. So because those people of those countries are not very, very keen to take up these kind of, professions, because most of them prefer a blue collar or a white collar job. So if that is the case, and that is and if you analyze this entire immigration across boundaries, you will see that why these people are going to these countries and why these countries are accepting them. And today, what is happening is the demographic character of this entire country is changing because what is happening is that the population or the immigrant population is multiplying much faster than the domestic population, and as a result of it, the percentage of the overall population in this country is going up. So once we have this holistic view of this entire situation, then you come to a situation where the government actually finds itself in a corner, and a government finds itself that population is increasing, jobs, opportunities are the same, and the local people or the people who belong to that actually country are not getting the same job opportunities which a particular government desire. And that is why Trump has started this thing, because it was his election campaign. He felt that the Americans are not getting their due in their own country, and they are being deprived of the jobs because the immigration or the migrants are taking up these jobs. So that is why Trump has so far not been able to deliver much on the immigration front, and the primaries are actually coming up next year in 2026,
Yeah.
where the midterm elections will take place, and it is going to impact his political prospects in this election, and that is why he has gone on a war footing now. $170 billion is a lot of money.
But on
He
that
actually-
question, his approval rating has in fact just come down.
his approval rating has come down because the way or the methodology which he has adopted in carrying out this immigration process is not correct. He is now carrying out political vendetta on certain sort of people, labeling them as
Yeah.
illegal migrants and putting them behind the bar. And especially this civil rights movement has actually come up in a big way, which is denting the popularity of Trump. So I think he'll have to adopt a reasonably transparent methodology, because his federal forces have been unleashed on these people,
Yeah.
total disregard of a particular state where the law and order is maintained by that state machinery. He is trying to impose his own law and order mechanism onto these states, especially the states which are ruled by the Democrats. So that is why this upheaval and backlash is taking place against Donald Trump, because his policy is viewed as a coercive policy. He will pick up anybody a person walking on the street, he will pick him up and label him as a migrant, and then he will put him behind bars. So that kind of an approach is not welcome in a country like United States, and that is why his ratings are going down.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Kocher, for joining me and sharing your opinion on that. Viewers, with that, we're now going to move on to news from Japan. A key decision is being taken today as a regional assembly in Niigata is voting on restarting the Kashiwazaki Kariwa nuclear power plant, which is the largest in the world, nearly 15 years after the Fukushima disaster. If approved, the Tokyo Electric Power Company is expected to restart unit number 6, marking its first reactor restart since 2011. The plant was shut down along with 53 other reactors after the earthquake and tsunami triggered the Fukushima nuclear crisis. Japan has since restarted 14 reactors as it seeks to reduce heavy reliance on imported fossil fuels and strengthen energy security. The move is being met with resistance as around 300 protesters have gathered outside the prefectural assembly. While surveys show a majority of residents remain uneasy about safety and the oversight of Tokyo Electric Power Company, despite repeated assurances and a pledged long-term financial support plan. And we now move on to some news coming in from Indonesia. A coach bus has slammed into a barrier on the highway, flipping over in an accident that has killed at least 16 people. The bus had headed from the capital Jakarta to Yogyakarta, which was traveling with high speed after reaching the highway interchange and overturned after colliding with the road barrier. However, the rescue team has evacuated 34 people till now. Let's listen in to what a search and rescue team member had to say.
Tersebut dari arah Jakarta dengan tujuan Yogyakarta, sampainya di tikungan simpang susun tersebut dengan kecepatan cukup tinggi, maka bis tersebut menabrak pembatas jalan sehingga mengakibatkan bis tersebut terbalik.
And I'm now joined by Dr. Sanjay Kumar, who's a journalist at the Korea Herald, joins us from Seoul. Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for joining me in this discussion. Dr. Kumar, of course, the tragic news coming in. Has any cause been established so far behind the accident?
So far, the authorities are still investigating the incident, and unfortunately, many people have died, and I think 26 lives have been lost, as per the reports that we have been going through. The problem is not to see this accident as an isolated one, but this has it is a kind of common accident sometimes when it comes to road accidents in Indonesia, because last year also near West Java we could see this kind of accident, and now we are seeing in South Sumatra, unfortunately. So rapid emergency systems have to be, like in place, and the zero tolerance policy has to be somehow implemented in these areas.
All right, sure. Is there any evidence so far at all of any substance abuse or alcohol abuse that may have caused this, or is it due to the highways? Anything at all so far?
In coming few hours, I think the investigators are going to come up with some sort of explanation. But right now, as of now, they are still investigating. But it is causing a backlash among many people in Indonesia and the Indonesians overseas, including those Indonesians who are living in Korea also, because these road accidents are very, if it is very common, then it raises concerns about those and their families, because the common people, they take these roads, and there are terrains in Indonesia. The population is also high, so it is dense many times, and they do travel many places, and that is why it is causing a great concern among the Indonesians overseas and domestically.
And as far as the passengers on board are concerned? Were they all locals, or were there any tourists on board as well?
So far, we have come to know that they were locals, and no foreigners were there. But we have to see more in coming hours. Yeah, we have to wait for few hours.
All right, sure. Well, thank you for giving us all that information, but do stay on. Moving ahead now, viewers, Switzerland is considering stronger measures to protect children from social media risks, following similar steps taken recently by Australia. Interior Minister Elisabeth Baum-Schneider has said she is open to a potential ban on platforms for youngsters and wants authorities to examine restrictions, including limiting harmful content and addressing algorithms that exploit children's vulnerabilities. The minister also emphasized that social media companies must take responsibility for what young people consume. Meanwhile, earlier this month, the parliament of the Swiss canton of Freiburg voted to prohibit children from using at school until they are about 15 years of age. And let's welcome back Dr. Kumar into the discussion here.
Yes, I think Switzerland is taking Australian case as reference because just recently Australia has also come up with some kind of policy like this, and it is a move to safeguard the under 16 public and under 16 children. And if we really refer to the European Union Digital Services Act, it aligns with that too. So I don't see any kind of backlash. Of course, for tech companies and innovators, they may criticize or they may consider it as a violation of digital rights for individuals. But this effect to children has been a great concern, not just for the Europeans, but also to the entire world. And that is why if Switzerland is taking such action, this should be seen as a benchmark in terms of Europe, and it is likely to be followed by some other countries in coming years as well.
Well, certainly, seems like a butterfly effect for now. But what do you think are some of the issues that Switzerland faces? That has led the government to promulgate such policies. There's of course the question of the content that children and minors are consuming. But are there also some radicalization concerns? Is this an attempt to prevent extreme elements from propping up, or are there questions of some underground drug trade or trafficking of narcotics through dark web?
It had to do with the perception that it creates. In these kind of social media contents, sometimes it is not filtered. When you do not have a filtered content which is being disseminated across the public, and if that public includes children and children and those who are under 16, under 14, under 10, 12, so it creates a vulnerability to them. And if you compare it from a human psychological perspective, the children are prone to follow the things which are being available in the digital space, because all these gaming things and all, it is considered as reality, because these children are not exposed to the real-time experiences of a long life. And that is why parents and the child welfare groups had been advocating for this since long. And if you take particular case of Switzerland also, they are very vulnerable too, because Switzerland has many tourists and different political groups, different groups of people. They go and come there. There are a lot of different kinds of digital transactions too that may affect these children. So there is a comprehensive impact of this, and that is why Swiss government doesn't want to lose any kind of leverage, and they want to come up with some very concrete idea, concrete policy, so that it can address the long-term effects. Yeah.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Sanjay, for joining me in this discussion for now. And viewers, that's all we have time for, but do keep watching NewsX World.